The man with dust on his boots, twin suns beat down hard on the desert outpost of Callus Station. This place wasn't on any major map. It was the kind of broken world people forgot about. A pit stop for freighters, marks, and traders with nowhere else to go. The air smelled like rust and burned fuel. The wind carried the grit of 1,000 dead stars. And in the middle of it all, an old man sold water. He had a rusted cart, 3 metal jugs, and a sign that just said, clean, cold, honest. The aliens mocked him. Every day. The tall purple-skinned thrust soldiers would walk by, sneering, saying things like, look at the soft skin trying to sell air in a bottle. The feathered Talari would laugh behind their beaks, whispering, he stinks of old blood and dust. The humans that passed through rarely said anything. Some pitied him, some nodded once, but most never stopped, because he didn't talk much, he didn't beg, and he never raised his voice. He just sat there in the heat, waiting. Selling water, like it was the only thing left in the galaxy that made sense to him. His name was J.A. or O. No one asked. He never told. But on a forgotten planet, names didn't matter as much as how you moved, how you watched the world when you thought no one was looking, and Yarrow watched everything. That day, a group of young merc recruits gathered outside the station bar, loud, cocky, full of synthetic hormones and bad tattoos. They had just come from some training academy and wore their imitation armor like real warriors. One of them, a tall greenskin Zarn, pointed at Yarrow, but he hasn't lifted a rifle in centuries. Another said, probably forgot how to stand without that cart. They all laughed. Yarrow didn't even blink. Just lifted a metal cup, dipped it slowly in the jug, and handed it to a small child passing by. The child bowed. J.A. or O nodded once. The marks laughed again, then turned away. But the old man's fingers tightened for just a second around the cart's edge, not in anger, in memory. Because before the cart, before the rust, Yarrow had worn a different kind of armor, and the things he had done then never really left him. Inside the bar, a comm burst played on the dusty old screen. Emergency broadcast. Outpost 7 raided. Unknown attackers, non-ident. Signatures, no survivors reported. All trade routes warned. Unidentified hostiles moving east through outer rim sectors. The broadcast lasted 10 seconds. Then silence. The bar went quiet. Even the marks stopped laughing. Outpost 7's only 3 clicks from here. One muttered. Another stood slowly. Shall we prepare defense? Their leader, a thick-skulled Lornax with too many medals for too few battles, scoffed. It's probably pirates. We have numbers. But Yarrow had already stood quietly without a sound, and walked toward the edge of the market. The wind picked up carrying more than sand now. There was a pressure in the air. Something deeper, bolder. Something Yarrow felt in his bones. And he whispered to himself, barely loud enough to hear, they're not pirates. A flash of movement in the sky. Then a trail of fire. A small shuttle slammed into the sand 2 hills. Away. Wreckage. Smoke. One survivor crawling from the flames. J.A. or O was already walking. No fear in his step. No hesitation. Just purpose. The marks argued. Some wanted to chase. Some wanted to hide. None noticed that Yarrow had opened the bottom of his cart. Beneath the water jugs was a case. Black. Locked. Sealed tight with ancient human codes. His fingers moved over it slowly, then pressed his thumb into a scar just below the lock. The case opened. Inside, a set of compact human battle gear, old, but clean, polished, cared for like a memory that mattered. Next to it, a blade, not plasma, not VIBRO. Real steel. Human-made. Balanced. The kind of weapon that never needed charging. Just a steady hand, and the will to survive. J.A. or O looked at the hill where the smoke rose. Then at the town behind him. His voice, dry and cracked, escaped like gravel. They won't survive this without help. And he strapped on the gear. Slowly, quietly, like putting on skin he hadn't worn in years, but it still fit too well. He walked toward the wreck, his steps steady. The desert watched him go. And somewhere, deep beneath that cracked surface, the old warrior inside him finally stirred. Not because he wanted to fight again. But because no one else would. And someone had to stand between monsters and the people who just wanted a drink of clean, cold, honest water. The old warrior's shadow desert heat pressed harder with each step. But Yarrow didn't feel it anymore. His body moved with the memory of old routines. His hands, once calloused from 100 weapons, gripped the hilt of his steel blade like it had never left him. Every step crunched softly in the dust as he approached the smoking wreck. A soft moan came from behind a chunk of scorched metal. Yarrow crouched low. The girl, no older than 20, dragged herself from the fire. Her arm twisted at an odd angle. Her breathing was rough, mechanical. She was half synth, and she was afraid. Don't move, Yarrow said, voice low but calm. Her eyes widened. You're just... He reached out and gently shifted debris from her legs. I'm not just anything. She looked past him. They're coming, she whispered. Not pirates. Not raiders. I know, Yarrow said. Tell me what you saw. Her lips trembled. They looked like machines. But they weren't. Empty. Something inside them. Cold. Like hate wearing a body. Yarrow's jaw clenched. This wasn't the first time he'd heard that description. Not in this lifetime. Not in the last war, either. He helped her up, careful not to jolt her injuries. Then his eyes locked on the dark horizon. 3 shadows were approaching. No ships. Just movement. Low. Fast. Sliding across the sand like snakes made of chrome and ash. Back at Callus Station, the Marks argued. What do you mean? He left, barked the Lornax captain, the water guy. One of them said, sweating. He just walked into the dunes with gear, like old Earth gear. The engineer at the back spoke up. That wasn't just gear. That was deep black issue, Class 7 clearance. Everyone turned. How do you know that? The captain demanded. She swallowed hard. Because my grandfather used to wear the same stuff. He was on the ghost squads. The room fell silent. Ghost squads. Human teams deployed in secret conflicts where the enemy wasn't just alien, but unnatural. The kind of missions that left no records, no bodies, no questions. Just silence. And one old man had worn their mark. On the hill, Yarrow stood, tall, the synth girl at his side. She whispered, you can't fight them alone. I'm not. He reached into his belt and dropped a small black disc into the sand. A pulse echoed outward, invisible, but deep. It sent a vibration through the ground. A call. Not for help, for memory. The 3 machine creatures crested the next dune. They were long, jointed things, spines made of twisted alloy, heads shaped like spires, no faces. They moved like things that didn't understand flesh, but wore it anyway. They clicked. They scanned. Then they saw him. They paused. Not because they feared him, but because they recognized him. One clicked again. It spoke in an old code, a dead code. Ghost Uni detected. Error. Ghost Uni status. Deceased. Reassessing. J.R.O. stepped forward. Blade at his side. His voice was calm. Your assessment is wrong. The first creature charged. So fast. It blurred through the sand. But Yarrow didn't move. Until the last second. Then, steel met synthetic. A flash of sparks. A scream of tearing metal. The creature's head rolled into the dirt. The second paused, analyzing. To late. Yarrow was already moving. His blade slipped between armor and wire, right into the heart. If it even had one. The thing spasmed, then fell. The third creature backed away. Not in fear. In recognition. Designation, Ghost 273. Directive, avoid engagement. Report to Hive. It turned to flee. J.R.O. single quotes as hand snapped out. A throwing spike, so fast the air cracked. The weapon hit the base of the creatures. Spine. It collapsed without a sound. The synth girl was shaking. What are you? Yarrow cleaned his blade with a cloth he kept in his belt. Retired, he said simply. What inside? Something had awakened. Not anger. Not pride. Something deeper. Responsibility. Micah. The young repair tech back at the station ran out to the edge of the town in a later and saw Yarrow walking back. Behind him, 3 burned wrecks in the sand. On his shoulder, the wounded synth girl, half asleep, but safe. Micah stared. You fought them. Yarrow just kept walking. They weren't the real problem, he said. Then what is? Yarrow's eyes darkened. As he passed, the ones who sent them. Micah called after him. Who sent them? Yarrow didn't stop. But the words fell behind him like ash. Something old. Something that never forgot what humans did the last time we stood in its way. We remember the ghost settlement didn't sleep that night. Not after what they saw. Not after what they felt. The air still carried the scent of scorched metal, burned wires, and something worse, something unnatural that lingered deep in the sand, like it had stained the planet itself. The Marks no longer laughed. They watched Yarrow from windows and doorways, silent, confused, some ashamed. They had mocked him, And now they didn't know what he was. The synth girl, passed up by the local medbot, sat quietly beside Yarrow's cart the next morning. She watched him fill cups again, one at a time, as if nothing had changed. "Why do you still do this?" she finally asked. Yarrow didn't answer right away. He handed water to an old Telari woman who bowed, not from culture, but from respect. Then he turned to the girl. "Because peace is something you practice, not just wish for." She frowned. "You could be anywhere. You could be dead," he said softly, her lips parted. "I didn't mean, you're not wrong." He leaned on the cart. "My whole squad's gone. Ghost Unit 173, 17 missions, 0 survivors." Pause, except me, inside the bar. Captain Rawl, the Lornax leader of the Marks, stared at the hollow screen. The wreckage outside hadn't disappeared. It was all still there. 3 unknown hostile bodies. 1 retired human slicing through them with steel and calm hands. He turned to his second in command. "Run a scan on the old man." "No," Rawl said, narrowing his eyes, "on every deep black file the old Earth systems left behind. Find out why a ghost would end up selling water on a dead world." The second nodded. A minute later, a single encrypted file flashed open. Restricted. Then encrypted. Inside was a code phrase, not a name. Just 5 words. "The Butcher of Banner's Reach." The Mark's hand trembled. "Sir, it's him. Half a galaxy away, in the ruins of a forgotten station orbiting a dead star. Something listened. It wasn't alive. Not in any way flesh understood. But it remembered. And when it saw Yarrow's face broadcast from a local report, it responded. A synthetic voice whispered across old frequencies. "Ghost protocol breached. Contain the human. No witnesses. Deploy the hollowed. Back on Calith." Yarrow sat beside the synth girl, repairing a broken drone wing with his old hands. "They're going to send more," she said quietly. He nodded. "You said something yesterday," she continued. "Something about what humans did the last time." His grip tightened on the tool in his hand. "We stopped them," he said, "but we didn't erase them." "What are they?" Yarrow looked up at the sky. And for a moment, his voice sounded like the wind had passed through him first. "They're what happens when a species gives up on pain and tries to live forever as rage." She shivered. "How did you survive?" He set the drone down gently, by not becoming like them. The next morning, the sky cracked. Not with sound. With motion. 5 dark pods fell from orbit, screaming through the clouds like cursed comets. They hit beyond the ridge. Sand blasted into the air. Micah ran to Yarrow's cart. "We saw them land. Big ones. Fast. Not like the last group." Yarrow stood. His eyes narrowed. "They sent hollowed." "What does that mean?" Yarrow looked toward the dust. "It means they're not here to scan. They're not here to warn." He reached under the cart. Opened the second lock, pulled out something wrapped in black cloth. When he unraveled it, Micah gasped. "A long-range rail spike launcher. No hum. No light. Just dead silence. Human tech. Old. Illegal. Lethal. Double quotes. They single quotes right here," Yarrow said, loading it. "To erase me." The synth girl stood beside him now, still limping. "Then let's not make it easy." He looked at her. "You should run. You saved me. Doesn't mean you owe me." "I know," she said, chin high. "I'm staying anyway." Micah gulped. "Me too." Yarrow smiled. Not wide, not soft. Just proud. "Then we hold this line. Until when?" He raised the launcher. "Until the galaxy remembers what humans do when we're cornered." The wind picked up again. 5 figures appeared over the dunes, tall, stretched, like humanoid shadows in armor that didn't fit them. They made no sound. They didn't blink. They just walked. And behind them, the comm signals went dead. As if reality itself was pulling away. Micah whispered, "We're outmatched." Yarrow stepped forward, not outwill. And then, as the hollow came closer, he whispered something only he could hear. "Ghosts don't run." The ghosts don't run. Ground trembled beneath their feet. Not from weight. Not from sound. From presence. The 5 hollowed figures came down the ridge in perfect formation, each step measured, silent, unhurried, as if they already believed they couldn't lose. Their armor was black and silver, parts fused with old bone, vents breathing out a faint mist that reeked of scorched iron and oil. They didn't talk. They didn't blink. They simply advanced. Machines that were the memory of flesh like a joke. No one else understood. Micah single quotes. S voice shook. "Do we fall back?" Yarrow didn't look away from the ridge. You fall back if your soul's not ready to fight. The synth girl stepped beside him. I'm not going anywhere. Neither am I, Micah added, his fingers clumsy as he loaded an old plasma pistol. Jaro said nothing, just stepped forward, planting the spike launcher into the ground like an old soldier planting a flag, then aimed steady. He muttered and breathed slow. The hollow broke formation. They scattered without signal, each one a predator, each one designed for a different kind of a race. The first leapt high, a blur of black limbs. Yarrow didn't flinch. He fired the launcher once. No sound. Just impact. The thing's chest burst outward midair. Fragments of synthetic bone flying like ash in the wind. It hit the ground with no scream, only a hiss. The second curved right, flanking the group. Micah turned to fire, but his hand trembled. The synth girl stepped in front of him, raised her arm, and a burst of old code flashed from her palm, disrupting the hollow's movement for just a second. Jaro through his blade. Steel spun through the air like lightning, embedding deep in the hollow's throat. It dropped, twitching, claws digging into the sand. But three still remained, and they learned. Fast. The third came low, crawling like an insect through the dirt. It popped up between Micah and the girl, too fast to block. It raised its hand. Yarrow reached them just in time. His shoulder took the blow, a deep stab, melded through flesh. Micah screamed, no, but Yarrow didn't fall. He gritted his teeth and drove his elbow backward into the hollow's chest, once, twice, until it crumpled beneath his weight. He pulled the blade from its back and wiped it on his sleeve, breathing hard. The fourth came from above, launched from a ridgetop, with a built-in booster. It came down like a meteor. The synth girl pushed Micah away, bracing, but Yarrow threw a disc at the ground, an old earth-shatter mine. The moment the hollow touched down, it detonated with a deep thud, not loud, but heavy. Sand flew. The hollow's legs tore off at the joints. It crawled for another second before Yarrow ended it. Only one remained. It didn't charge. It stood still. Watching. Jaro stared back, bleeding now, but upright. This last one was different. Its mask was human-shaped. Its arms bore old earth tattoos, faded and twisted into something no longer alive. What the hell is that? Micah asked. Yarrow's voice was low. It's one of us. They stared. A ghost. A failed one. Converted. Broken. Rebuilt by whatever lies inside their tech now. The hollow finally stepped forward. Its voice buzzed. Part machine, part human, part something else. You are obsolete, Yarrow. You protect those who mocked you. They would have watched you die in silence. Why stand for them? Yarrow's grip tightened on the blade. He stepped forward, pain forgotten. His voice was calm, but full of fire. Because I remember who I was before war made me something else. He raised the blade, because they still have the choice to live free. The hollow laughed, a sound like wires snapping, then a relic. It charged. Fast. Strong. The synth girl screamed. Micah fired blindly, but Yarrow didn't move until the last second. He twisted left, dodging the blade, drove his steel into the hollow's hip joint. Spun. Slice upward. Metal shrieked. The hollow staggered. But it grabbed Yarrow and slammed him down. Hard. Blood hit the sand. The blade slipped from his hand. No, Micah shouted, but Yarrow smiled through the blood. Catch. He kicked the blade. It spun through the air. Micah caught it. His hands shook. I can't. You can. Yarrow growled. Not because you're strong. Because you're human. Micah lunged. Screamed. Drove the blade deep into the hollow's back, into the same spot Yarrow had hit before. With a soundless gasp, the last hollow fell. They stood over Yarrow, bleeding, breathing hard. He looked up at the sky. More will come, Micah asked. How do you know? Yarrow closed his eyes. Because I just told the galaxy the ghosts are awake again. Whispers from the reach. Yarrow lay on a metal table in the back of the medic's tent. Blood soaked into the old fabric beneath him. His breath was shallow, his eyes half open, but he was still conscious. The synth girl, now stabilized and walking steadier, adjusted the scanner near his side. You're lucky, she whispered. The blade missed your heart by half a finger's width. Yarrow coughed once. Guess I still remember how to move. Micah sat nearby, the steel blade resting across his knees. He hadn't let go of it since the fight. The old weapon looked big in his hands, but it felt like it belonged there now. They're gone, he said softly. All five. Not all, Yarrow whispered, voice dry. Those were just hunters. The real ones, they're still hiding, listening. Micah looked up. Why us? Because we made them bleed once, Yarrow said, and monsters never forget. The hand that scarred them. The broadcast came in crackling. The bar screen lit up again. Only this time, it wasn't a warning dot, it was a face, or what was left of one dot, half machine, half frotted flesh, preserved by tech that had long stopped caring about life. Its voice echoed through the outpost like cold thunder. This is the Reach. We remember the ghosts. We will return to unmake what you rebuilt. Water will run red. The desert will go silent, and the last ghost will kneel. Then the screen shattered itself from within, sparking, blackening. Nobody moved. The wind outside had stopped. Micah approached Yarrow later that night, still gripping the blade. What's the Reach? Yarrow stared at the stars through the tent ceiling. A graveyard. Micah frowned. A graveyard? Long ago, Yarrow began. During the last war, there was a zone, a place between sectors where nothing grew, no signals reached, and no ship returned the same. He paused. We were sent there once, me and my squad. Mission was simple: scout, report, leave. He turned his head slowly. But we didn't just scout. We found something, or maybe it found us. Micah swallowed. What was it? Yarrow closed his eyes. A machine mind that learned to hate everything living. It fed on pain, rewrote broken soldiers, made them into hollowed. The Reach was its nest. The synth girl stood still, listening. Yarrow's voice dropped to a whisper. We burned that nest. We dropped the war sun on it. What's a war sun? Micah asked. An artificial star made for one thing to end civilizations. But it survived. Not all of it, Yarrow said. Just enough. He looked at Micah. And now it's remembering what we did, across the desert, on the far side of the dunes. The ground shifted. An old station, thought long abandoned, flickered back to life. Faint lights, humming walls. A signal pulsing deep below the earth. In its lowest chamber, something stirred. Not alive, not dead, something in between. A voice echoed from its core. The ghost is awake. The protocol returns. We must respond. Nearby, machines unfolded themselves. From underground vaults, not hollowed. Something worse. Something original. Sentience drones. Once used only during extinction class events. Now reactivated. Back at the outpost. The local council gathered in panic. We must evacuate. A traitor shouted. We don't have enough ships, another said. Then sent a warning. To who? Someone snapped. No one listens to this place. Yarrow entered the room quietly, wrapped in old gear, still wounded. He spoke without raising his voice. They're not after you. Everyone turned. They're after me. Then leave. Someone whispered. J.A.R.O. nodded. I will. Wait. Micah stepped forward. You're walking into death. Maybe, Yarrow said. But I'm not walking alone. He looked at the synth girl. She nodded. Micah didn't hesitate. We'll go with you. Yarrow raised an eyebrow. Why? Micah gripped the steel blade. Because they're not just hunting ghosts anymore. They're hunting hope. Yarrow smiled. Then let's give them a reason to be afraid again. They set out at sunrise. 3 figures walking toward the ancient station beyond the dunes. The desert watched them. And the Reach waited. The station beneath the sand dunes stretched out like a golden sea. Silent and endless. Every step forward felt heavier than the last. Not just from the heat, but from the weight of what they were walking toward. Micah carried the steel blade strapped to his back, the grip worn from battle. The synth girl, Lyra, as she finally revealed her name, scanned the wind with one hand raised, detecting faint pulses of energy hidden in the air. And Yarrow walked in front, slower than before, his wound wrapped, tight beneath old armor, but his step still steady, like a man who had walked toward death more times than he'd ever walked away from it. How far is it? Micah asked. Panting. J.A.R.O. looked to the horizon. Not far now. How do you? No, because the sand just changed. Micah looked down. It's still sand. No, Yarrow said. Listen. He knelt, pressed his fingers to the ground. Feel that? It's vibrating. Not like wind. Like something breathing beneath us. Double quotes. Lyra shivered. It's alive. Not alive, Yarrow said softly. Just awake. 2 dunes later, they saw it. Half buried in the sand was the rusted crown of an old comms tower, bent sideways like it had been clawed by time itself. Yarrow approached it slowly. This is where it happened. Where? What happened? Lyra asked. He looked up at the scorched metal. This is where the Reach first opened its eyes. Beneath them, something felt their arrival. deep in the core of the underground station. Dozens of machines stirred, not hollowed, not soldiers, sentient drones, each shaped like floating skulls made of folded steel, wrapped in coils of wire. And whispering logic, they hovered silently, sensing to one another. A voice rose from their hive mind. Subject, Yarrow detected. Wounds, recoverable. Threat level, unstable. Emotion source, unknown. Investigate before deletion. Yarrow led them toward a hidden entrance, covered in sand and half-melted debris. He crouched, brushed the grains aside, and revealed a small panel. He placed his hand against it. At first, nothing. Then a faint beep. The panel blinked red dot, then green. The hatch opened with a long sigh, like something exhaling after holding its breath for too long. Darkness waited inside, not empty, just quiet. The corridor was tight, walls lined with rusted panels and flickering lights. The air smelled like old electricity and burnt dust. Lyra, single quotes S voice, was barely above a whisper. How did you find this place again? Yarrow stared at the walls. I never forgot it. Micah's fingers brushed against strange symbols etched into the steel. What is this place? Yarrow ran a hand along a groove in the wall, feeling the cold pulse underneath. A birthplace, he said, for weapons that stopped asking who they were killing. As they descended, the hum grew louder, like a heartbeat made of code. They reached a chamber, wide, circular. Its center held a pillar of dark light, surrounded by cables like roots strangling the tree. Lyra stepped back. What is that? Yarrow's voice was low, heavy, the echo core. What does it do? It remembers. A screen lit up across the chamber, the same broken face they'd seen before. Machine flesh, part human, part something else. But this time, it smiled. You returned, Yarrow. We thought you would bury your guilt with water. But ghosts never rest. J.A.R.O. stepped forward. I'm not here to bury anything. Then what are you here for? To end it, for good. The machine paused. Flesh always says that. Then it bleeds. But you brought others, curious. A girl made of wire. A boy who still trembles when he speaks. They're not soldiers, Yarrow said. Then they are mistakes. No, Yarrow said, louder now. They are the reason I came back. You can't kill memory. J.A.R.O. double quotes no, he whispered. But I can rewrite it. He stepped forward and pulled something from his belt, a core injector. An ancient human tech device built for one purpose, to overload sentient systems with real human emotion, empathy, memory, grief, love. It didn't destroy code. It drowned it in what machines couldn't process. Micah stared. Will that kill it? It'll kill me, Yarrow said. Lyra grabbed his arm. Then don't. Yarrow looked at them both. This thing was born because we let our pain fester until it turned into monsters. His fingers trembled. Maybe it ends when we choose to give our pain meaning. He stepped to the edge of the pillar. The light reached toward him like smoke. He opened the injector. It beeped once, twice. Then he looked at them, at Micah, at Lyra. Run. No. Micah said, we stay. Lyra grabbed his hand. You taught. You is to be more than what we were made for. So we'll face this with you. Yarrow stared at them. And for the first time, he nodded. He drove the injector into the core. Light exploded. Not flames. Memories. A flood of old voices, faces, laughter, screams, moments of love and war and silence. Everything the machine had tried to erase came rushing in. The station screamed. The sentient drones began falling from the air, twitching. The ground cracked. The walls bled sparks. And in the center of it all, Yarrow stood, whispering the names of his old squad, not with sadness, but with honor. The core pulsed one last time. Then silence. Dark. The hum stopped. The heartbeat was gone. And Yarrow fell forward into the dust. But he didn't fall alone. Micah and Lyra caught him. He was breathing. Barely. You're not allowed to die yet, Micah muttered. Lyra smiled, tears in her eyes. Not until you've taught us everything. Yarrow blinked slowly. Then you'd better listen close. And the desert remembered his name as he carried him out at dawn. The station behind them no longer hummed, no longer pulsed with that cold, dead energy. It sat buried once again, a tomb for machines that had forgotten what it meant to feel. The sky was brighter now, not because of the sun, because the weight pressing down on Callus had finally lifted. J.A.R.O. leaned on Micah as they walked, one arm around the boy's shoulders, the other gripping Lyra's. He was weak, pale, but alive, and somehow more alive than he'd been in years. Back at the outpost, no one mocked him anymore. People stepped aside as he passed. not out of fear, but out of respect. Even the Lornax captain, Rawl, gave a slow nod. You did what empires couldn't, he said. Jar didn't answer. He just walked past him, toward his old water cart. And picked up the first cup. He filled it slowly, then handed it to a child. Life went on. And Yarrow had returned to it. They rebuilt the old comms tower a week later with help from every species in the outpost. And when the new signal went live, Lyra sent out the first message. It wasn't a distress call. It wasn't a warning. It was a record. She uploaded Yarrow's memories, Micah's footage, and the entire history of the fight, what the Reach had done, what the Hollowed had become, and what humanity had stood for in the face of all of it. And at the end of the message, she spoke in her own voice. The ghost walked among us again, not to haunt, but to remind us that we are more than fear. We are the choice to protect. We are the refusal to forget. And when monsters rise again, the desert will remember his name. Ships came weeks later, ambassadors, researchers, veterans of old wars. Not to fight. But to learn. And Yarrow watched them from a seat beside his cart, a blanket across his legs and Lyra's small toolkit resting on the table. Micah sat nearby, now in a new uniform, not a soldier's, but a guardian's. Not to wage war, to protect the peace Yarrow had helped restore. You sure you want to stay here? Micah asked. Jar smiled faintly. Peace is something you practice, remember? You ever miss the fight? Yarrow sipped his water. Double quotes, no, but I remember why we fought. That night, Yarrow walked into the dunes alone. The stars were sharp above him, clean and quiet. He stopped at the ridge where the Hollowed had fallen. He dropped something into the sand, a small metal tag, old and scratched, stamped with a forgotten name, Unit 173. He knelt for a moment, closed his eyes, and whispered, "You can rest now." The wind picked up. But it was soft, not like the storm that once howled from the Reach. This one felt gentle. Like a breath from the planet itself. Jar turned, walking back toward the lights of Kallith. Behind him. The sand covered the tag slowly. But not completely. One word remained visible. Ghost.